Thank you, Emily, for being here.
Hi, Anna. It's so nice to I'm honored. It's so nice to talk with you this week.
Well, I'm really excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is going
I'm
to be
excited
fun.
too.
I guarantee it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's just get started so that we have, plenty of time to get to know you and to get to know about you, your business, the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
uh, tell me where you're coming from, where
Um
you live currently. You don't have to give, no addresses here,
my
but
address, my zip
no,
code.
yeah, none of that. Just like general vicinity of
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you're coming from.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm in Ohio. I'm in central Ohio, about 40 minutes east of Columbus, so state's capital. I originally grew up in Michigan, so I've kind of migrated my way down this way, but
Midwest,
yeah. Yeah, I'm in the Midwest.
Midwest girl, and it's probably cold there.
It's cold, but we haven't had I don't think we've really had any snow at all this year. We
Oh
maybe had, like, a
wow,
brushing. I was just
oh
talking,
wow.
to my mother-in-law about that yesterday,
Mhm.
and I was like, I'm sad, I really do enjoy snow when I don't have to, like,
Yeah.
drive in it.
Yeah.
I like
How
looking at
long
it.
do you get how long do you usually get snow? Like a
Um,
typical
it
winter?
generally we generally get, like, a really big snowstorm around Christmas,
Mhm.
and then it normally lasts until maybe March,
Yeah.
mid-March or so. It just
Yeah.
kinda depends.
Yeah. So no
Yeah.
snow this year. So it's coming. We're
No.
coming on spring now.
I know,
What a
I know, I
bummer.
know. I'm sad. It's
Boo.
okay. Maybe
Boo.
next year.
Yeah, exactly. Then
Yeah.
you forget, yeah, it'll be like be careful what you wish for. Next year will
Right, right. Yeah.
land. We'll
Maybe we'll
have this
get a huge.
conversation again next year.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so you are in Ohio. Tell me a little bit about your nursing story. Like
Yeah.
how did you decide to become a nurse? How did that happen? Give me a little bit of
Oh boy. Yeah.
background.
So, I don't know. I guess growing up, I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field. Science was super fascinating to me. I feel like that's the usual typical story. um,
Yeah.
but I actually vividly remember my senior year of high school, deciding what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to go into something medical, healthcare, and my grandpa, he actually ended up having to have a quadruple bypass open heart surgery. He was in the hospital for a while. He ended up doing really, really well. And I would visit him while he was there. He was in the hospital for at least a few weeks. And I'd visit him, and I remember how wonderful these nurses were. My grandpa he's a bit of an anxious person, and kind of like the rest of my family. This is my
Yeah.
dad's side, and my dad
Yeah.
is one of seven. So there's seven siblings. So there's a lot of family just in
Activity.
general, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like we're all kind of a little bit on the anxious side
Mhm.
sometimes. Anyway, but the nurses were all so 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 wonderful, and I started to really think about, is this something maybe I want to do? And it just so happens, yeah. So I went to the University of Toledo up in Toledo to get my bachelor's degree in nursing
Mm,
right out of high
mhm.
school.
Mm. Nice.
Um, yeah, yeah, and
That doesn't happen all
I
the time. But nowadays I think it happens more often. When I went to
yeah,
nursing school many, many years ago,
yeah.
it did not happen. There were no programs that you could just go right into nursing, but I do know that now based on
Yeah,
my
yeah. I mean, yeah, my first 2 years were all prerequisites, but it was all aimed towards,
Mhm, mhm.
being able to apply to the College of Nursing.
Right.
And then the last 2 years were actually in, nursing school, or,
Nursing.
the
Right.
program, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah, yeah,
But you
yeah.
had to apply and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that. I graduated with my bachelor's in 2017. And I actually ended up getting a job as a new grad in a cardiac ICU at a local
Mm,
hospital up there.
nice. Wow.
Um, I always loved cardiac stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
When I was in school, the heart is the cardiovascular system, and the heart is such a fascinating system and such a fascinating organ. And I've always been super. It's always made sense to me. I
Mm,
think that's my
mhm.
biggest thing. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that, and then I transitioned. Couple years, I ended up going to a cardiovascular ICU, worked there for a while, and yeah, so experience is pretty much critical care, pretty much
Yeah.
cardiac, and
So
uh,
you can read an EKG.
I can, yeah, I can.
I'll be honest with you, that was always my weakness. This is why I went in
Yeah,
the
it's
operating room.
yeah, like I said, it was just something that clicked with me so well.
Mhm.
And I still and I just the cardiac medicine and all those things, they're all just such near and dear things to me. So,
Right, right,
yeah.
right. And it's
Yeah.
natural that you went into that and went down that
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
That's great. I also love that about nursing. I have 2 daughters and I always tell them, one of them is gonna go to she's planning on going to nursing school. But I always tell them and others that there are so many different avenues that you can go into
Oh,
with
yeah.
nursing. The fact
Mhm.
that, cardiac was your thing definitely was not my thing because of the
Yeah.
fact that I couldn't read a darn EKG. Even even before nursing school, my bachelor's was in exercise physiology.
Mhm.
And there I took an EKG class and I couldn't read it. And then, I was like, and then even in the operating room, I look at the EKGs for 25 years and I'm like, yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
not my expertise, but there are
Yeah.
plenty of people that it comes natural to and,
Mhm.
labor and delivery and peds and
Oh,
all of
yeah.
those things. It's just
Yeah.
so great that there are so many different avenues that just click
Mhm.
with people. Okay,
Yeah.
so you worked in the cardiac ICU and then so how long did you do that for?
So out of school, I worked there in the coronary ICU, coronary ICU for about 2 years, and then I um, moved to. So that was up in Toledo. So I moved about 2 hours south to the Columbus, Ohio area, and began working in a cardiovascular ICU, and that
Right,
was
right, right.
in early 2020. Actually, it was
Mm,
the week that the COVID
mm.
shut the world down in March in
Yeah, I was
2020.
gonna
Remember
say
my
early
orientation?
2020, I know what that is.
Yeah, my orientation was canceled. Like they were like, just
Wow.
report to your unit, and I was like, okay.
Wow. So you jumped
Obviously,
right
I
in there.
got
Yeah.
like an actual orientation, but like the hospital orientation,
Right, right, right.
learning about the health insurance and all that
Right,
stuff.
right, right. Pick your
Um,
benefit.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
And
yeah.
then and
That's
then it was like, the world stopped, right?
Oh, yeah, it was scary. I mean,
Yeah, I bet,
I
especially in your unit. I can't
yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
it wasn't very bad to begin with us because they just canceled surgeries.
Mhm.
But then it
Right.
started to get bad when like the COVID ECMOs came in.
Mhm.
That's
Right,
yeah.
right. You
So
probably were
yeah.
slammed with that. Wow,
Yeah.
okay. That's, yeah. We all wanna that's like the blip
Yeah.
in nursing where everybody stayed home but us.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Okay, so then you decided to go into legal nurse consulting. How
Yep.
did you make that transition or why did you decide that? Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that decision.
So, it's funny. I had heard of it, but I had no idea how to go about it. I think, heard of it, saw, when Googling, what to do in nursing. Definitely, I think it was something that popped up, but, I had no idea how to go about it. This wasn't something that was taught in
Right.
nursing school as like a different
No.
avenue
Right.
in the nursing world. And I actually working in the cardiovascular ICU back in 2022, I had a coworker who was friends with a legal nurse. She has her own business. She, my coworker of mine was telling me what she does, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. Um, so I actually connected with my coworker's friend, and oh
Mm,
gosh, my dog is coming in here.
okay.
Sorry.
It's all good.
um, and anyways, I connected with her, and she told me all about what she does, how she went about it,
Mhm.
and yeah, so I ended up signing up for a training course,
Mhm.
and I just dove right head first.
Was it something that initially when you were looking into it, was it something that you thought, "Okay, I could supplement this, it might be something interesting to do," or was it something that you said, "Oh my gosh, I want to get out of what I'm doing now and do that?" What Initially, what was that
You
thought?
know, it was kind of it was honestly kind of both. I was like, you know what, I want to see what this is about. This might be a good little thing to do on the side. Maybe I can go
Mhm,
part time from the
mhm,
bedside.
mhm.
Um, and as I got more and more into it, I realized I was like, you know what, this is something that I really, really enjoy doing, and I absolutely could do full
Right.
time. And I it's a whole thing, but basically I realized I really needed to leave the bedside. So yeah, I kind of dove right in
Yeah.
head first
So
into
you're
it, doing
doing
it full
this
time.
full time.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty amazing. So how
yeah,
far into learning the process and then applying it and launching your business did you go full time? I know, and I don't like to necessarily, I like to talk about it, but not in a comparison because
yeah.
everybody's journey is different. But for
Yes,
you, what was that like?
yes. Everyone's journey is so different. I started the training for it at the end of, or yeah, at the end of 2022. Launched my business in February of 2023, and then I left the bedside in June of 2023.
Yeah,
Um,
so pretty quick.
yeah, so I felt that I was busy enough to do that,
Mhm.
and yeah, so I just
And so
went
you've
for
been
it.
doing that ever since. That's
Yes,
fantastic.
yes, been
So
doing it ever
what
since.
was
I love it.
your Yeah, that's awesome. I love your story. I mean, I talked to you in 2023
Yeah.
and I remember you telling me that and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're my hero."
Oh, stop
I
it.
think that no, I mean, I honestly, right,
I'm
because you
nothing special.
launched well, no, but you launched your business and you went all in. And
I
so
did.
there's something to say about that because
Yeah.
my next question is actually what was your biggest fear about doing it? Because a lot of times people fear launching their business because
Oh my
it's a
gosh.
business. I mean, us as nurses are not taught anything about business. So for you, what was your biggest fear about the going into this world, this new nursing world?
You know, if you would have asked me just a few years ago, if you would have told me that this is what I was doing now, I probably would have laughed in your face.
Mhm. Mhm.
Being an entrepreneur is not something I ever saw myself
Mhm.
doing,
Mhm.
truly. And so I think my biggest fear was failure. I think that's the
Right.
biggest fear for
Sure.
everyone.
Sure. Sure.
And in the back of my mind, I was always like, what the heck am I doing? Like, this is
Right.
crazy, Emily. What are you doing?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I think it was fear, the unknown,
Yeah.
am I gonna actually be successful at this?
Mhm.
Um, and all the things that come along with that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was fear of the business, and I imagine that that's everybody's fear
Yeah.
if they've never done the business. And the interesting thing about fear of failure is that because you decided to go into nursing and you were excited about it and obviously you had the experience with your grandfather and you probably had the same fear of failure, but it was not quite as strong because it was something that you were very comfortable with. Even in
Yeah.
the field that you went into, you were
Mhm.
comfortable with.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
fear of failure is a little bit different than the fear of failure of this. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm doing something that is totally in left field from what I'm used to doing.
Mhm.
What happens if I fail this? Because I've never done this before, nor,
Right.
like you said, nor have I, if you asked me a few years ago, nor would I have thought would have gone into that. So that
Yeah.
fear is very real of
Yeah.
failure is I know that mostly it's disappointing yourself, I'm sure. It's like,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always succeeded at everything. This is gonna be the one thing. What if this is the one thing that I do that I disappoint myself in?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
real thing, and it's probably the same answer for 90% of the people that come into this business,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm
And
sure.
and I think just to kind of piggyback off what you said, I this in nursing school, this isn't something that's taught. You're
No.
taught to go to the bedside, which is fine. I
Yeah.
loved my time at
Mhm.
the bedside.
Mhm.
I loved
Mhm.
taking
Mhm.
care of
Right.
patients.
Right.
It really, being a nurse, it changed me as a person.
Yeah.
but this isn't something that's taught. You're taught to go work at the bedside, and then you're taught to go back to school to be an NP or a CRNA, which is fine too. Those are
Right.
all great roles.
Hmm.
But it's just an atypical
Right.
role.
Right.
So, you know, you just have no idea what to expect. And you're
Yeah.
like, wow, I'm really going outside of the norm a little
Right.
bit here. And that's really
Right.
scary.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, I think on the fear of failure, because kind of touching on what I had mentioned earlier about all the different avenues of nursing we can go into, and the fact that I'll fully admit that reading an EKG is not my expertise.
Yeah.
Did you fear that you wouldn't know certain things?
Oh
Because
my
I
gosh.
know for me, my story, and I haven't shared my story, but in any of the podcasts.
Yeah.
But part of it is that I knew of legal nursing many, many years ago. So I became a nurse 24 years ago.
Okay.
So
Wow.
about 20-ish years ago, I
Mhm.
remember seeing someone that taught legal nursing. And I thought maybe it was even longer ago, but right after I finished.
Sure.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting, but there's no way I could do it. I don't know enough. I don't know enough. This is all I know. I've been in the operating room. For me, I've been in the operating room my whole youth, I'll say.
Mm.
And I don't know anything about any other field, so
Yeah.
it's not the right thing for me. And that was the decision I made along 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Looking back at that, I wish someone would have told me what I know now, right? Is that you
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to know everything. You are a nurse, and it comes down to that, and you develop resources and things like that. So did
Mhm.
you have that fear as well,
Oh my
or
gosh,
did
yes.
you know that, you could make this work without knowing everything?
I had that fear. I still have that fear every day.
Okay.
Every
Yeah,
day
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh man, am
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gonna come
yeah.
across something I don't
Sure,
know?"
sure, sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you're so right. Y It's kind of like being at the bedside. You sometimes you don't learn situations until you're in them.
Right.
And there's so many resources out there. There's so many
Right.
wonderful I've developed so many relationships with so many other
Yeah.
LNCs as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
to for guidance and
Right.
things like that. So
Right.
I fear that. I feared that. I still fear
Yeah.
that
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah.
day.
I love
But
it. Keeping it real. I love that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's I know that I have resources,
Mhm.
and also knowing too that there's people that have come, so many successful LNCs that have come before me that have done this,
Right.
and probably maybe had the same fears, I'd
Right.
imagine.
Right.
So that makes me feel a little bit better
Right.
too.
It's
So
like
it's also
I
remembering that.
yeah, it's that whole if they can do it, I can do it. If they can do it, I
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like you kind of remind yourself of that. Okay.
yeah.
So what surprised you the most, would you say, of this business?
Oh
Like one thing
man.
that pops into your head.
Um, it's I think what
That you were
surprised
able to do it full time right away?
I mean, yeah, to be honest, that I was able to do this, like, I kinda really
Yeah.
surprised myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
Because
mean, I get that. Yeah.
like I said earlier, if you would have told me a few years ago this is what I'd be doing, I'd probably be like, "Excuse me,
Right. Right.
Emily,
Right.
owning a business?"
Right. Right. So
I
that
you
in
know,
itself.
I think that yeah, I think that's probably the biggest surprise that I
Mhm.
had. Trying to think of what else.
Yeah. Well, you can pat yourself on the back for that.
Oh,
That's a big one. That's a big
yeah,
one. And that's
yeah,
okay if that's it, because honestly, I mean, there are probably, a lot of LNCs out there that have launched their business that wish that they were surprised by that. So that is a great surprise, and
yeah.
that's perfect. How do you feel, or where do you feel that you shine the most? So we're gonna pat yourself on the back, and now you
Oh
also
boy.
have to pat yourself on the back with this. I know, and it's also I think not having a business and learning how to be a business owner, sometimes we have a hard time patting ourselves on the back, because
Yeah,
there's always something to learn. There's always that you're never ahead of the game. You're always kind of behind, but you also have to learn to, like, toot your own horn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
where would you say you shine the most, or one of those?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind, I feel as though I am very personable when it comes to my attorney clients. So my business name is Trusted Legal Nurse Consulting, and I
Mhm,
think the thing that I wanted the most when building my business is I wanted my attorney clients to trust me,
mhm,
because there's so many LNCs out there, and I just wanted them to be able to trust me with
right,
their clients'
mhm,
cases and their clients' records.
mhm,
Um, so I think I hope, I feel like that's where I probably shine the most
right,
is, I really try to bring that trusting, personable, um, trait to every
right,
client interaction that I have.
right.
So yes, that's really what I aim for.
How
I
would
feel
you say you do that with your clients? What is kind
I'm
of the thing that you make sure that you share with them that they can trust you?
I feel like trying to think. I feel like I'm blinking.
That's okay.
I
No.
had words in
So
my
it's
head.
probably it's honestly it's probably listening. You probably are a very good listener, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
most of the time, if someone is going to feel trusted and heard, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
They are going to have been listened to, and you take
yeah.
that all in and you say, "Oh, I totally understand. I know this is kind of a funny analogy, but like I'm gonna take your hand and we're gonna walk
Yeah,
through
yeah,
this. So
yeah,
trust me on this." So you probably are a really good listener when you do have those conversations with
yeah.
them. And that shows that they can trust that you have their back, right?
Yes. Mhm.
That you understand what they need, and that they come back for more because of
Yeah,
that trust. So
yeah, yeah, and
so
that's,
it's probably just, you know what it is it probably just comes so natural to you that you can't really necessarily point out what the
yeah,
difference is between someone that I mean, we all want our attorney clients to trust us, but that's like your forefront, and it's natural to you. So it's almost natural for you to not recognize that that's what makes you
yeah,
different also.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm sure that that's the case.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
that you say it.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I can
It's
tell that it's hard to put it in words. I mean,
it is,
and
and I
and
feel like
trust is hard to put into words.
it's so hard to put your strengths and whatnot into
Yeah.
words too,
Yeah. Yeah.
because, we all wanna think that we all
Yeah.
do these things so well, but I feel like, I mean, for me, I feel like when it comes to talking about those things, it can
Sure,
be a little
of
difficult.
course. That's why
Yeah.
I'm glad you're on this podcast, because now you get to talk about it.
Yeah.
The more and more, I also think for me, the more and more you talk about it, the more and
Uh-huh.
more confident you are, and that shows across your communication. It shows across, the fact that, you're going to say, "Hire me because
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing." And
Yeah.
so you hear yourself and you're like, "Wow, I do actually have that strength. Oh yeah, I guess I do. Yeah, all
Yeah.
right. All right."
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
talk about it more, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's not being it's not being arrogant at all. It's just being like, "No, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm
Yeah.
doing up to this point in what I know." Like, I
Yeah.
know what I know. I don't know
Yeah.
everything. And you don't, and it's not that you're going to say I know everything, because you don't. You definitely say, "Hey, this is what I know," but and you're confident
Yeah.
enough about that. So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great.
Thanks for taking
Okay.
that away.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I gotcha, girl. All right. So, who is there someone in your life now that's like your biggest cheerleader in this business? Is it a fellow legal nurse, or is it a family member, or is it someone that's like rooting you on, that just wants to see you continue this successful journey?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I guess in my personal life, I mean, there's so many people. I seriously could not have done any of this without the
That's
support of my
big.
family
Yeah,
and friends. I
so your
mean,
family.
truly,
Mhm. Yeah,
there's so much imposter syndrome that comes with this type
for
of thing.
sure. For sure.
And like I said earlier, I never imagined myself doing this.
Yeah.
I definitely say my husband, Carl. He's my biggest supporter, always
That's
has my back,
fantastic.
has
Yeah.
encouraged me from day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, yeah, just really a lot of my
Yeah.
friends, my, and family, things like
Yeah.
that. You know, my parents as well, have always been
Mhm.
big supporters of me doing
Mhm.
whatever I want to in this life.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I feel like that's always been a driving force.
Yeah. That's
And then
good
I
to
guess
know.
professionally too, I do have quite a few mentors in the LNC world.
Mhm.
Um, so, um, I,
Yeah.
I have so many
So
that
you have a lot. You have a lot of
yeah, I do.
support.
I have so many that I look up to and that support me.
Yeah.
And
Gives you
yeah,
the little extra push. And
yeah.
I love the fact that you mentioned the imposter syndrome because it is a real thing for
Oh my gosh,
sure.
yes.
And I think that if we just sat in our little offices and we didn't have a support system, it would be really easy to just say, you know what, throw in the towel because of that imposter syndrome. And that's actually why I asked that question. Why I asked that question, because sometimes we don't have that support and sometimes we have to push ourselves through the hard things. I know me personally, I've run other businesses in the past many years ago, and the support came from people that I didn't necessarily expect to come from. But we all are humans and we all need that little extra push. So I love to
Yeah,
hear that you have so much support, and that probably is one of those things that just kind of keeps pushing you. And it's not a matter of disappointing them on the fear of failure. It's a matter of like, okay, they're like my
yeah,
cheerleaders. I'm going to make
yeah,
this happen. They believe in me, so I'm going
yeah.
to believe in myself. And I'm going to make this happen. So I love that
Yeah,
you have a
yeah, and
big
I'm
support
so lucky
system.
to have everyone in my life who supported me.
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah, it
that's so
just
great. I love that.
makes it more and more worth it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It makes it enjoyable too,
Yes.
makes
Absolutely.
you proud. It makes them proud. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you a couple questions about actually your work.
Okay.
So I always like to say that we're a student of our craft, right? We're always
Mhm.
learning. I'm learning like
Oh yes. Every single
I'm
minute
learning.
of
I'm
every day.
learning. Every day I'm learning. And of course we're looking at video now, but if you're listening to this, I'm pointing to my bookcase of many books. I'm always a student. So what is one thing that you do in your business now, like on your reports, anything that you didn't do a year ago? Is there something
Um,
that you have like, I think we talked about this before. I think that you've modified things a bit to make it work for you. So name kind of one of those things that you've changed in the last year.
um, man, that's a hard question.
I mean, it
Um,
could be, it could be a specific type of report that you give your attorneys that you didn't know a year ago that you seem to that they seem to like now, maybe
okay.
something like that.
Um, I feel with a few of my attorneys, I will do what I call them merit reviews. Basically, they're preliminary reviews. Basically, my attorney client, they get a case, and I have one attorney that calls it a temperature check, before he sends
I
it
like that.
off to an act to an. So my work is behind the scenes. I don't do testifying work, but what
Right.
he will have me do is he'll have me do a temperature check
I like
almost
that.
and
Yeah.
kind of get an idea of how I'm feeling about the case,
Mhm.
whether, I'm talking about med mal here, but
Mhm. Mhm.
whether there was a breach in the standard of care, things like that.
Right.
So I what I do is I write up a merit review type report for him, basically, all the key contenders, narrative summary, my opinion on the matter, and pointing out all of the individuals, if there's more than one, individual or individuals that I felt are were negligent, and I list out their failures. So failure to
Right.
document, I'm just
Right. Yep.
brainstorming here,
Yep.
failure
Yep.
to document appropriately,
Right.
failure to properly assess. So I list all those out. And then I also will make up just what I call an expert chronology. So my usual chronologies have all of my comments and my comments, medical terminology
Sure.
definitions,
Right.
abbreviations, things like that.
Right.
But what I'll do is I'll, basically make a chronology without all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and have that, and then my merit review report, and
Mm-hmm.
then my attorneys will send that off to a expert that would, be willing to testify if
Right.
needed, and kind of go from there. So
Right.
that's kind
Yeah.
of what I've
Yeah.
modified in the last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of my
Yeah.
biggest things
Yeah, yeah,
as
okay, that's
recent that I can
great. No,
think
I love
of.
that. I love that, and I
Yeah,
love the term temperature check because it
yeah, yeah,
makes it, a lot more, I don't know, plain and simple, you know?
yeah, yeah.
We as nurses have to learn, legal terminology, so sometimes when we simplify things or they simplify things for us, it makes it much more understandable.
Yeah.
I know for me that's the case, so
Oh, yeah,
I love that
definitely.
term. I love that term.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What would one of the biggest tips you have for LNCs when it comes to report writing? What would be one of those tips that you might have?
I would say, starting out, most LNCs, you're doing sub work, which is great. I still do sub work. Majority of my beginning of my business was sub work. I loved subbing because you learn so much from other experienced LNCs.
Mhm.
So I think my biggest advice would to be a sponge. Take all of
Okay.
that information in
Mhm.
and just absorb it and take it in, because when it comes to a time when you have enough work for your own business, you're doing your own business's work, you'll have so many tools and so many things that you can use to make the best report
Right.
possible for your
Right.
for your clients. And also too, when you're talking to your if you're talking to your attorney clients on the phone, just remembering all the things that you've learned as well, I feel like really really helps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I love it. That's
Yeah,
actually one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is so
yeah,
that if someone, doesn't have the opportunity to sub or learn from
mhm,
other people, this is an opportunity for them to learn from other people. And just a
yeah,
little tidbits here and there are really,
yeah,
really helpful.
yeah,
I know for me, every time I do an interview, I get a little tidbit. So it's great.
yeah,
So I love that you shared that tip. It's true. It's like, listen to what other people are saying or um and if you have the opportunity to sub that it's not a bad thing because
no,
you get to learn from
you
others
do.
and however there's no real standard. That's the interesting thing about this is there's no real standard. So everybody kind of does it different. And
Yeah,
so and you don't necessarily get the feedback from people. So when
yeah,
you hear how others do it, it's really helpful to kind of
yeah,
marry that with what you're doing and like
yeah,
you said, be a sponge. I love it.
yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to owning your own business, what is one of your biggest tips you have for LNCs?
Let me see. I'm trying to think.
I'll probably give you this one because I think that
Yeah,
we've also talked about this before is that um not necessarily knowing everything, right?
yeah,
Y- You basically end up doing things as they come, right?
yes,
So it's
yes.
like, you've never, let's just say you've never put an invoice together. Oh, now it's time to put an invoice together. You put an
Yeah,
invoice together, right?
yeah.
Or like
Mhm,
or like the, 1099s.
mhm.
Don't worry about that now. Worry about that when the time comes,
Yeah,
right?
right.
See, I listen, I listen. We're giggling because we've had conversations in the past about these
Yeah.
kind of things. So,
Yeah, yeah, I had a whole
about
thing with
business
it.
things.
It was
Yeah,
a
I
whole
mean, and
thing.
that's really there's a whole thing. But that's really it, right? Like when you say that you didn't wait. Okay, so I say this also because you didn't wait to know everything about business before saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this full time." Right? You were
Yeah.
like, "I'm doing all this sub work. I'm getting enough work. I may
Mhm.
not know the next 10 steps of business owning, but I know enough to where I can just when it comes to me, then I'll just deal with it."
Yeah.
I think I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I
No,
also
I
think that
mean,
based on
I've
what
been
I've observed or
yeah,
heard or
owning my business is yeah, it's truly been a I'm learning as I go.
yeah,
Because,
I
this
love
is
it.
my first business.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm sure you could maybe say that about maybe the first business you ever owned, 'cause I
Oh,
know you're
yeah,
going through numerous.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Totally.
You learn as you go. Don't be afraid to ask questions to fellow business entrepreneurs, like how I texted you, gosh, what was that,
Yeah.
a few weeks ago about
Yeah, yeah,
something
no, don't be afraid to ask
business
questions. That's
related.
so good because it can
Um,
be intimidating. It can be
yeah.
intimidating to
Oh
ask
my gosh.
questions. And you
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like you need to know. So there's no dumb question, right?
There's
Like I
not.
love the fact that's it. I love the fact that the tip is that don't be afraid to ask questions
Mhm.
because you may not know, but guess what? Somebody else knows.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, I feel like sometimes people are afraid to ask questions. Because yeah, you don't want to seem silly or not knowledgeable.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I feel it's especially if this is your livelihood, it's better to play it safe than
Yeah.
sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
there's
love
no
it.
dumb questions.
Yeah.
There's
I
really
love it.
none.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. All right. Let's see here. And I've got one last question.
Okay.
We've made it. We've made it. Okay. I've
Okay.
got one last question. The question is, what is one thing you wish you knew before you started this business? Um,
um, to trust your gut.
mm,
I've learned some things along the way that I
mm,
really wish that I had little inklings about,
mm,
that I wish I would have taken seriously.
mhm.
Um, yeah, just trust
Yeah.
your gut. You don't know, like how you said, we don't know. You learn as you go in this business, and you absolutely do not know everything starting out, and I probably won't know everything ever. There's
Mhm,
always something new
mhm,
to learn,
mhm,
but
mhm.
just trust your gut when it comes to certain things. And yeah,
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing I've learned, honestly.
Trust your gut. I love
Yeah,
it. That's one of my favorite things
me
is
too.
because
Me
we
too.
there we do deal with a lot of self-doubt, but
Yeah,
trusting your gut,
definitely.
it's in everything. It's in business, it's in life, your gut tells you something for a reason and just follow it.
Yep.
Right? I love it.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I appreciate you sharing your knowledge, and I'm
Oh.
really excited for you. And like I said, you're my hero. You jumped in real quick and I know it's so funny, but it's so true. Like because honestly, you believed in yourself because if you didn't, you wouldn't have said, "I'm going to do this full time." So you believed in
Yeah.
yourself, which is one of my favorite things as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for you. I love
Thank
it,
you. Thank
and
you. Well, I'm
you're a wealth of knowledge as you are as
uh,
well. So appreciate
I
that.
like I said, I'm learning every day as I go. I'm
Yeah.
definitely no expert in
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a
But
student.
I'm
You'll always be a
definitely
student.
I definitely am not afraid to ask questions and
Yeah.
just take in as much information. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna keep being a sponge for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I love
So
it. Totally.
yeah.
As you should. As you should.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you once again. And then can you tell everyone where you can be found?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a couple different places. I'm on LinkedIn just under Emily Heron, my name. That's EMLEEHERRON. I'm also on Instagram, my business Instagram. The at is Trusted LNC. And I can also be reached by email. That is Emily at trustedlnc.com.
Perfect. And those will be in the show notes as well. So
Oh,
reach
thank
out
you.
to Emily if you have any questions or just want to say, give her a high five for doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Say hi to her, anyways. Yeah. So thank you again for being a part of this. I'm really glad I got a chance to get to know you
Yeah.
and your story a little bit more. So I
Yeah.
appreciate
Well,
it.
I'm honored. I was honored to be asked. So thank you for having me on.